It's chaos.
It's a different type of Sunday scary.
It's your newest obsession.
It's Dirty Driving, a Formula One podcast.
We're the Hornsby sisters. I'm Katie.
And I'm Megan.
Yeah. Bonjour, bonjour.
Bonjour, mon amis. We have returned from French Canada. Our voices are not here, kinda.
They're kind of here.
You wanna know why?
Lots of yelling. Lots of yelling.
If you don't know why, we're about to tell you. Katie, tell them why.
Welcome back to another episode of Dirty Driving, but this one is extra special because we just got back from the Canadian Grand Prix.
Literally just stepped off the plane. It was delayed. Thanks, Air Canada. Twice. Technically 4 times. We're not friends, but it's all good.
If I have to hear her complain about Air Canada one more time, I know they screwed you. They really screwed you, but we're past it. We're home. We made it. We were on time. You weren't on time coming home, but
I'm sorry. I was not on time at all this weekend.
You were delayed every flight, weren't you?
Every flights. Flight. All 4 were delayed. We are 0 for 4. I am the Yuki Tsunoda of flying Air Canada.
Oh my God. You just threw him under the bus.
I'm pissed at Yuki. I was not this mad when I walked out of the track on Sunday, and it's just been brewing.
Absolutely stirring. You've been marinating on it. But
I've over marinated myself on the Yuki Tsunoda crash. So but I feel like before we get into the race, Katie, we need to really break down our first Grand Prix experience, because when I say that this could have been, like, this was my Super Bowl, the greatest Christmas morning, and the single most phenomenal vacation rolled up into one. I'm not exaggerating.
Yeah. I mean, it was probably one of the best weekends of my life.
Hands down, have to co-sign that message 100%. I do not think I've stopped smiling. And every time I think about it, I just get all giggly and I'm like.
We were within reach of these drivers, within reach. We breathed the same air that Martin Brundle breathed. We were there. We did it. We lived it. We experienced it. We loved it. We laughed. We cried. We screamed. It was phenomenal. Absolutely phenomenal.
It was chaos. It was unhinged. It was wonderful. It was everything I could have hoped for, and so much more. It almost feels like a fever dream now that I think about it. And I'm about to admit something right now. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
Since we've been home, I had to quickly go back and watch FP1, FP2, FP3, and qualies, just the highlights to get a little refresher because, I had a couple Heinekens. But let me tell you, every time a car went down the start-finish straight, I was like, that was me. That was me.
That was me.
We were there.
Us. We were sitting there.
They would pan to the section that we were, because we were we really truthfully were across the track from the Aston Martin and Williams garages. So we were right between, it was Albon's garage and Stroll's garage, but we could see into Sebastian Vettel's and Nicholas Latifi's. We couldn't see into Seb's for Friday, so we actually missed the incident between Seb and Magnussen. We'll talk about that in a second, but that's where we were. So every time the sky cam peels down as the cars are whipping down the straight after the chicane, I'm like, that's me. That's us. We're there. That is us. As I'm watching the TV.
Yeah, I rewatched the race and I literally paused and rewind 7 times to see if we could spot. Megan and I were in orange and blue, if you didn't see the pictures, and I was looking for us, and we were right next to an Irish flag. So if you see an Irish flag on the fence near the end of the grid lineup, that's us.
I found us in an F1 Paddock Club picture. So it's like the third, I'll post it on the story tomorrow so everyone can see. But the F1 Paddock Club took a picture from what looks like it's over the Mercedes Red Bull garages down the grid, like looking towards the Wall of Champions. And you can see the flag. So I know that we have to be there. And there's someone in orange. So that's you. And then there's a pole. And there was a timing pole. What I think is a timing pole, or it's one of the light signal poles. And I'm behind it. And then there's two black blobs, which would have been Dad and the intern.
Yes.
And then the Irish flag.
Yes, our intern joined us, PJ, and also our father, because it was Father's Day, so we couldn't leave him behind. And it was actually really, really, really enjoyable to spend Father's Day with him on the grid. So shout out to Roger.
Honestly, I know we're about to get into this, but I'm going to jump right into it. I think one of my favorite moments of the weekend, and something that I overlooked really getting into, is it was like maybe 22 minutes before qualifying, maybe 12 minutes before qualifying, maybe even 2 minutes before qualifying.
I think it was literally like 5 minutes before. I'm going to steal your punchline, but I'm going to steal it. Sorry. You look at Dad and you go, do you even know how qualifying works?
I know I've explained it to him a couple of times, but with Dad, with Roger, we call him Rocky, long story. But with him, you have to kind of explain it a couple of times really you have to, he's someone who's like visual and needs to be there and be immersed in it. And so I think he now knows completely what it is because he was there and he was like, oh, so now Sonoda's out. And I was like, you listened.
You know what's going on.
But it was right before it happened, and I'm explaining qualifying to him, and he's like, okay, so the 5 are out. And then after Q1, he was like, okay, so those 5 are out. And I was like, light bulb moment. So that was like one of my favorite moments. It wasn't on Father's Day, but the whole point of the trip and the whole reason we invited him was because the race was on Father's Day, and we did want to spend time with him. And I'll be honest, honesty hour, we did book the tickets and then find out Father's Day was that day, like a couple of days after we bought our tickets.
Yeah, we definitely only bought 2, and then we had to buy 2 more. So, hey, we made up for it.
We made up for it.
We made up for it.
Okay, Katie, I just said one of my, let's hear your favorite moments. I have plenty more, so let's like run down the list, but like give me your top one right now.
Yeah. Top one, I made a reel about it. It's out there in the world. It's in the ether already if you haven't seen it. It was my first moment. We're standing, let me set the scene first. We're standing in the grass along the straight before the hairpin. And this is like the second spot we've tried out. We've tried out over by the hairpin. We've tried out, now we're at the straight. We have not seen an F1 car yet. And we don't know that FP1 is starting because there's no TV right there. So like, yeah, we have our phones, we have the clock, but we really don't know. And then we heard them. And then we saw them. And I think had I not have wanted to miss the rest of the cars passing, I would have passed away. I would have literally fallen over onto Dad, which God knows what would have happened if he probably would not have caught me. So thank God I didn't pass out.
He would not have.
He would not have. So that's honestly my favorite moment. I've been watching these cars on TV since 2019, and it's been 3 long COVID years in the making to see a Formula One car live. And that's my favorite moment, was the very first pass by. And like, when we were getting to the end of the race, I was like, they're only going to pass by us 3 more times, 2 more times, 1 more time. Like I was counting in my head because it's thrilling. It's absolutely thrilling to see them whiz by.
It's so funny you say that because I took a video of Max and Carlos passing on like, I think it was lap 69. One, because I was all day, we'd been making 69 jokes. We've been all the support. There's 3 support races, so there were jokes about, we're gonna place a bet that car 69 wins that race. So I wanted a video of lap 69, but more importantly, in my head, I wanted one last. I mean, I had tons of videos of cars just going past, but I wanted one last video of Max and Carlos going by, which makes no sense because we're literally going to Coda later this year, and I'm gonna have tons more videos. But it was the sense of, I don't want this experience to end.
Yeah, and I'll preface this early on in the episode. So we had GA tickets, and for Coda, we will be in one of the grandstands. And so 2 completely separate, different experiences. And I am looking forward to sitting in the grandstands and getting the chance to compare the 2. But we were up on the fence. Martin Brundle came up to us 10 feet away, if not less.
Oh, yeah. Literally, we spoke to Martin Brundle, which, okay, let me run down all my favorite moments real quick because we've got a lot we want to dissect with our first GA experience. We want to talk a lot about it. So other than my first experience that I mentioned, also in qualifying, I really loved in our second or like third spot, I guess, we were on the fence. Like I said, between the Williams and the Aston Martin garages, we have a TV above us. We're like looking at the pits. I loved having the cars going past during qualifying, but also being able to look up at the timing screens. It was the absolute best of both worlds to experience it live, but also have the context of what's going on around you on track, and also know about, the yellow flags, whether or not Latifi had hit a groundhog or not, because I didn't know that Esteban Ocon had an incident in FP1 until we had left the track on Friday. That is how unaware you are of what's going on around you if you don't have a TV spot. Other cool thing, I really am so glad that we got the experience of seeing wets, because seeing the spray off of a F1 car is fucking cool.
Yeah. And not only, this is one of my favorite moments, so I'm going to interject, but not only seeing the wet, but seeing the dry. Like, we got the 2-in-1 deal. The only other thing that could have happened is it could have snowed, and I've never seen it snow at a Formula One race. So we should look that up. I wonder if it ever has. Probably
Max
not.
did that whole thing where he like drove his Red Bull in the whatever. Long story.
In the snow, yeah, whatever. Long
that
story.
Thing.
Okay. So yeah, seeing both was incredible.
It was such a good 2-for-1 situation. It was only one day of rain too, so it was like the whole weekend was just like rainy and awful. Other cool thing, I kept talking about this, and I feel like people thought I was just nerding out over this. Getting to see all of the inner workings, what time the garage is open, what times the teams start working, how the cars and the teams get to the pit crew. Like, all of a sudden, the gates open right in front of us. Like, we accidentally have this amazing spot where the fence to the pit lane opens, and all of a sudden, the pit crews start lining up on the grid. The cars go around, they start pulling them forward, and you're just like, Martin Brundle? Like, all of a sudden we're like, whoa. How did Buxton? We accidentally get this amazing spot to see kind of all of the stuff that happens during that like intro session before the pre-race show. So that was pretty cool. Other cool thing, meeting cool people in Montreal. Everyone was so cool. Everyone was so kind. Everyone in the restaurants, everyone on the subway. I don't think I met someone who was rude, whether they were from Montreal or they were at the track. It was amazing to be in a space where everyone was kind. Ooh, fourth favorite thing, maybe fifth. I don't know what number on. I don't know why I'm numbering them. Highlight. Yes, we ran down the pit, or not the pit. Yes, we ran down the track. But that was cool. I loved it, lived for it. You know what was great is when I was up on the fence after the podiums were done and I yelled through the fence, "Hi, Media Spice," and Christian Horner looked at me. I don't know if he was actually... He was like... I don't know if he was like, acknowledging me. He was holding hands with Jerry, so I don't know if he was like, thought I was talking to her. All I know is that Christian looked at me. He looks like he gave me some side eye in the photo I took. It gave me great joy. I don't know. Moving on. Also, sparring with the fans, like that, like banter. We had this Red Bull guy by us, and he just kept like giving us like shade, and we were throwing things back. And one of the guys in our group was like, Nolan, a Formula interested American, was holding up like an empty thing of prosciutto, yelling like Forza prosciutto for Ferrari, and he's like Red Bull, and then we're like, where's Michael Massey? And he's like, we don't need him. It was just fun. But then also seeing like Gunther, Charles, Lewis, George, Carlos, like the whole gang. So that's kind of my rundown of my highlight reel moments that I keep playing in my head over and over again. Katie, let's hear your highlight reel.
Yeah, I have two other ones that I'll point out now, and the rest will come up later. But being in our poor man's paddock with the Formula interested American boys, men, I should say, and all of their friends, and our dad and the intern, it was just, we kept saying, like, we could have paid $4,000 to sit across the way, and we probably wouldn't have had nearly as much fun as we did. And so you don't have to be in the paddock to have a good time. I think that's like one of my biggest takeaways from the weekend is, yeah, you get special access. You get to be closer to the drivers. It's a once in a lifetime, maybe twice in a lifetime opportunity if you can afford it. But just going and being there is incredible. And my second part is being in the atmosphere of a Formula One race. Megan said it. Everyone is kind. I didn't have one interaction that I was upset about or anything like that. Everyone just wants to be there. And we're the biggest fangirls, fanboys in the world because we'll sprint miles for them. We will wake up early for them. We'll fall asleep at the dinner table for them. Like, we will do anything for this sport. And that was just so incredible to be around, seeing all the merch, listening to the conversations, and just knowing that there is a community of Formula One fans out there that does exist and that loves the sport just as much as we love the sport.
Katie, I thought you were going to say one of your three was your morning jog.
Oh, my morning jog? No, that was not a highlight. That was actually probably a low point, but we'll tell the story now. So Sunday morning, it's race day. We're getting there early. We think we're there early, and we think we're going to be first in line. We were like maybe 200th in line, if I had to guess.
We need to provide some context here, Katie.
Oh,
Let's provide some context. So we made a small oops. That was a good oops. I thought the track opened up at 7:30. The track opened up at 8. We planned to get there at 6:45. So we get on the metro at 6:22 is when I looked at my phone. We were on the third metro to the island. So you get on the metro in the city. It's other than a ferry and taking the shuttle to the casino, which is what we should have done. It's the primary way of getting there. We're thinking we're in the clear. We're going to be, one of the first 200. We'll get a good spot. We did. We walk out of the metro and we were like, okay. Y'all people were on the first and the second train. People are sitting their lawn chairs. Sammy's, these people
cracking
from Canada
beers.
Cracking beers.
I'm loving it. And I'm over here warming my tires, ready for my jog. Because I look at Megan. We've waited maybe 30 minutes, and I say, I think I need to go on a jog. And she knew exactly what I was talking about. And you know what? I took one for the team because the Hornsbys are not runners. But you know what? We are
not.
I took one for the team, and I ran my heart out. I only walked once, and it was through the fan zone because I cut through the fan zone when everyone went around the fan zone. So I was like, this is my time to walk. And second row. If I would have trained, if I would have known I was going on a jog, I would have worn different shoes, different tires. I did warm up. I warmed my tires up. I did a little bounce back and forth. But I ran my heart out, and I got us a second row spot. So
It was an incredible spot. She did amazing work. But we did learn our lesson. We should have just gone to the casino entrance, which was significantly closer to where we wanted to be and only had 20 people in line. But, you know, everything is a learning experience. And it was a story because approximately 6 minutes after I showed up, Nolan comes running around the corner like ready to pass out because he too has not prepared himself physically, mentally, or emotionally for said jog.
And by jog, we mean sprint. Like I was sprinting, but that, you know, it's fine. I did it.
It is an all-terrain sprint, by the way.
All-terrain.
She's going from concrete to mud to some grass to some rock.
Turf. There was turf. Wood paneling. There was a bridge.
Dodging puddles because it's rained for the last 24 hours. It's windy. It's a full mile from the entrance to where we wanted to sit. And she did great work. Great work, Katie.
Yeah. I think I'm like at a 10-minute mile, which it's not going to get any better than that. I don't want to hear it from anybody. For someone who doesn't run, a 10-minute mile is fantastic. So that's
I will fully admit that I fast walked and I did open up Find My Friends and I watched Katie's little dot move. I'm not going to even lie and say I even attempted. I was like, I'll catch you there. I'll buy the first round of beers.
I put in the work. I think the only thing that we haven't mentioned of our top highlights was the driver's parade.
That was so cool.
They were in those old cars. I can't remember what the brand of the car is. Something Healy. And they just drove past us, all 20 of them, and waved, and we saw Lewis Hamilton's perfect skin, and we were chanting for Perez, and it was fantastic.
You mentioned Lewis. Can we talk about his fit? His team kit underneath the overalls?
Yeah, we can talk about that for a second. Exquisite.
I also am very thankful that we accidentally attended a race where the driver's parade was not on one of the flatbeds where they kind of zoom past you, because the old cars, like, they're individually in a car and it goes slow. And it was even slower because Lance Stroll stopped at his grandstand and, you know, threw hats into the stands. And then they pulled Nicholas Latifi aside and they talked to him. So it was a slower driver's parade from what I understand from what the people around us mentioned. So that was really actually kind of a plus because we got to see him out there longer. And the cheers for Checo were incredible. That was actually very shocking, not surprising.
Yeah, it was incredible.
Okay, kiddo. Let's chat about the three. So one of the things we wanted to do, and I'm actually really excited about this because like we've mentioned a couple of times, this was our first time at the Grand Prix. And as we were going through this weekend, as we were preparing for this weekend, it's really hard to actually find good advice about going to a Grand Prix. It's really hard to find good advice about buying tickets for a Grand Prix. So one of the things I definitely wanted to take time out of this episode to do is kind of the three things that we wanted to make note of and do for the future that we hiccuped on and want to improve for the future.
You want to take the first one?
Sure. I am willing to admit our mistake on the first one.
I was prepared, but
this one is probably I feel like the whole gang kind of fell on this one a little bit. You really need to pack for every possible scenario that can happen. And when I mean every possible scenario, I mean pack the umbrella, the poncho, the jacket, the rain shoes, the hot weather outfit, the cold weather outfit, the transition outfit, the running shoes, every outfit you can possibly have, and an extra outfit, you got to be prepared for whatever it's going to throw at you. I would even go as far to say maybe pack an extra pair of socks. You never know if you're going to step in a puddle or a giant mud puddle like I did multiple times this weekend. And then subpoint B to that, pack a bigger backpack. That was my big oops, is I thought I had a backpack that was big enough, but really pack the bigger backpack and store all the things in it. And when I mean all the things, I mean all of the things. Because you're going to be there for a long time.
We had sunscreen, we had deodorant, we had Band-Aids, we had portable chargers, collapsible water bottles, umbrellas. We got ponchos there.
We had a blanket.
Camera, phones, charging cords. And I think one of the biggest things I realized was people pack for the day. Like, people bring lunches, people bring drinks, people bring snacks. We kind of were on we're going to eat at the track, whatever the track is serving, which there were plenty of options to choose from. And I thought plenty of stands that allowed for short lines, if any line at all. And so I think that's one of the biggest things I realized was that. And then a lot of people brought chairs, lawn chairs, which would have been nice.
Yes, I definitely would do chairs next time. I definitely would pack more snacks. I also think I maybe would have brought bug spray. I didn't really put 2 and 2 together that we were going to be on an island, and said island would have, water and marshy areas because it had all these little bugs everywhere. But really, just go and pack anything. Advil, painkiller. That's something that popped in my head, because you're just out in the sun or you're out in the cold all day and you never know what's going to happen. So have the stuff available for you, because there's things you can get at the track. You can buy the water bottle. You can buy the lunch. You can buy a Sprite. You can't buy Advil or a Band-Aid or Dayquil or an allergy pill or sunscreen. So there is like a limitation to what you have access to.
Another big note is to pack a change of shoes, not to the race, but like to the weekend. The intern only brought 1 pair of shoes and it rained, so he had wet shoes. And so highly suggest, also it's just good for your feet when you're standing that long or sitting that long or walking that long, to have a separate pair of tennis shoes. And please wear tennis shoes. The amount of sandals and flip-flops I saw was ungodly. Just wear sneakers.
Just wear the closed-toed shoes, because there are so many hazards. Literally just walking around, I was like, I almost ate shit multiple times and I was in sneakers. Okay, the next thing is, and this is a big recommendation that we had talked about doing and we just kind of decided to
wing it.
We weren't really sure what we were thinking or what we were feeling or how each day at the track was going to go, so we didn't want to commit. And once we were there, we were kind of like, we should have committed. Is just make dinner reservations. Decide where you're going Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday night. And if you're going to be there longer, Wednesday and Monday night too. There are going to be 300,000 people over the course of those days that need to be fed. Some of them will go home. Some of them will go back to their hotels and their Airbnbs. Not all of them. Be prepared. Know your plan, because you will be hungry. Even if you eat at the track 2 hours before you leave, you will be starving after you wade through the crowd to get to your transport home. Trust me, I was freaking hungry. And at that point, you've earned the right to eat literally anything you want that night.
And our last note on what we could improve on for next time is specifically for GA. We had to hold down our spot. And so we would have definitely given up our spot on Friday to explore more, explore early and explore often on Friday. So walk the track, figure out where the best spots are, where you want to be seated, figure out where the water stations are. And one thing that I kind of do wish we did a little bit is hang out in the fan zone a little longer. And maybe I've done one or two of the activities that they had. There's the pit stop, there's the reaction test, there's photo ops, there's lots of other activities that you can take part in. And we kind of skipped over that to watch. But I think I would have hung out in the fan zone a little longer, or the Heineken Terrace, and listen to music. So take Friday to really explore. You can watch FP1 and FP2 highlights when you get back to the hotel.
I definitely co-sign that. That was the only little, and we didn't really figure that out until we were so far into Friday that we were kind of like done and tired. And at that point we were like, let's just see fast cars. Okay, so recap. Do's and don'ts of GA. Do. Make friends with the people around you. They'll look after your stuff while you have to run to the bathroom. They'll give you tips, recommendations on travel, all the things. They'll share photos with you. Hell, you might even throw your phone to somebody and have them take the picture of a lifetime for you. Plus, it's fucking badass to meet new people. And we met amazing people this weekend.
Number 2, get up early on Sunday and get your ass to the track as early as you physically possibly can. Because if we would have been one more metro in, we would have been front row in our spot. So get there early. It doesn't matter. It's one day. Go out. I don't care if you go out on Saturday night. You're getting to the track early on Sunday.
Next, bring blankets or chairs. Do not subject yourself to the grass all damn day. And with that, bring your sunscreen, your hat, your sunglasses, and if need be, buy the damn poncho. Don't be the guy with a hotel blanket all day.
Next, share the fence for photos. Be a kind person. Grab someone's phone. Airdrop them the photo you just took. People were wonderful, but share your spot. Let people get the photo op that they want to get to.
Bring snacks. And the pro tip of the weekend, it probably saved Katie and I, like the four of us, $50 minimum, is bring refillable water bottles. We had these collapsible water bottles. We'll share them. I mean, when I say $50, I'm not kidding you, because you need to drink water. You're there for 8 to 10 hours.
Next one. Try to find a spot near a TV screen. So not only do you know what's going on in the big picture of the practice or the qualies or the race, but you also get your section of the track. I think that's kind of our biggest tip, is to try to find that spot with that TV, just so you don't have to, you know what's going on. At the end of the day, you want to know what's going on. So find the TV, sit there, grab the spot.
And with that, bring a radio for some like old school vibes. One of my, like, it wasn't like a highlight, but it was up there, was the fact that we were all huddled around this like old radio, like waiting for the message about like what is Max Verstappen's radio message. So it was kind of fun, cool. I don't know. It just felt a little bit like how they watched in the 70s, but not really, because we had a TV in front of us.
And this one is for our amazing friends, the Formula interested Americans and their friends that tagged along, who we met. Buy the case of beer for the race. There's no limits on alcohol purchasing at a Formula One race. So, well, there might be in the US, but not in Canada. So you can buy a whole pack of beer from the stand. So buy the pack of beer, drink it for the race, and make some stupid wagers with your friends, like who's going to win, and make it a shoey bet. And then you'll be doing shoeys.
Great great nonsense. And it makes the day go by faster. Bet on the sport races too. Too much fun. And then finally, if they storm the track, fucking go. Go. Figure it out. Figure out your stuff later. Go. Do not miss that moment, because I think my heart stopped when I got to actually touch the track.
Yeah, she was geeking pretty hard about that, so. All right, now the don'ts. Don't be a jerk about your spot. Be kind if you get the better spot. Share the photos. Let people hop in and grab the photo. And also, don't be a butthead in any of the lines. Food, bathrooms, and definitely not the beer line. We made some great friends in these lines, and so just be kind. We're all here to watch the thing that we love, and so there's no need to be snarky or mean or rude. People are coming here from all over the world to watch, and the least we can do is be kind to one another.
This is kind of like that one, but I had to include it. If there's a kid behind you, if there is a kid trying to, I don't know, get to the fan zone thing, whatever, let the kid go first. Let the small human have the experience, because I promise you it will mean more to them than it does to you. Let them stand in front of you. Let them see the fast cars go vroom, vroom. Because we need more F1 fans in the world. And I think the most important thing is that you start them young, and seeing like the joy and what this sounds ridiculous, but there was a group of kids that I saw that were just so excited to see Lando Norris race. And I just like brought me such joy. I was like, in 10 years, those kids will be like starting a podcast, or I don't know, whatever they're doing in 10 years that's talking about F1. So whatever it is, just like let them have the experience first. Like you can wait the extra 3 minutes, whatever it is. Okay.
And finally, when there are thousands of people trying to leave, just don't push. Again, that goes with just be kind. So just a little note. All right, Megan, let's get into some questions before we get into the race recap. Would you sit GA again?
Yes, I would 100% do it again. I'm trying. Like, I think we try to make the poor man's paddock a thing, like an annual thing or biannual thing. It was so much fun. Even with a limited amount of space, it was beyond fun. It was, you were up early, we were sleep deprived. Yes, you had to run. But it was truly so fun being surrounded by diehard fans that were genuinely so in love with the sport that they woke up at 4:30 in the morning and took the first metro to get there. It was just wonderful. Like, thinking about it is just like I don't think I could have asked for a better experience. Okay, hard one for you. This one's a little tricky. What is one misconception that you had about in-person races that you've now like debunked for yourself?
Yeah, this was tricky to think about, and I brought it to like 3 main things. One, I wasn't sure how the support races were organized or how they worked. So it was interesting to see those meshed in when Formula One wasn't racing. And I thoroughly enjoyed them. They were entertaining. I think it would be really, really cool to be at a race weekend where there's F2. And so you can kind of see the future of Formula One. That's definitely on the bucket list. And little joke, Roger, and the bucket list, long story. Second, the all over organization of like how everything was laid out. I was confused on and kind of just like pictured it differently, but I really enjoyed how it was laid out. It made sense. And then finally, we touched on it earlier. You mentioned it, but when the drivers and the teams arrived, I wasn't sure, did they get there before the fans and they hung out all day and they were in their, spaces, or did they kind of show up a little bit before the race and join. And we did see Seb come in on his bike, and we saw Alonso come in his car. And so just kind of having that timing, like the all over timing of everything, just makes a lot more sense. I don't know if that I might have copped out on that question and talked about random things that I was confused about, but those are kind of my misconceptions of what actually happened.
No, I think you answered it perfectly, because I truthfully think a lot of people that I told were going were just shocked. They're like, so wait, you go to the track at 8 and you do nothing until the race? Like, most people don't know that there's things that happen from, 8:30 was, I think, the first thing most days, 8:30 or 9:10. And there's, something every there's like 30 minutes to 45 minutes between things. But there's stuff that's happening at the track throughout the day. So it's not like, well, that's just what's on track. And then there's fan zone stuff happening. There was like a monster zone with like BMX racers. And then there's like a whole ass party happening in the Heineken Terrace. So it was, you're right. Like, the misconception is that you go to the track and then you sit there for 6 hours and then finally a car comes out.
Yeah, there's plenty of things to keep you busy while you're waiting. Okay, what is one thing you realized about F1 now that we've seen it live and in person?
This was really eye-opening. And again, something that I don't know how well translates from what happens on track to TV. There is so much coordination to a point where it is actually fucking impressive from multiple levels. First off, the fact that a venue can do this, and by do this, I mean, we're talking security, we're talking vendors, we're talking multiple races happening in a row on time with delays due to red flags, yellow flags, moving them on and off the track. We have marshals clearing debris. We have, in between two races on Friday, we had someone come out and fix signage. I'm like, first off, how did anyone know that that was incorrect? How did someone know to send that guy to do that? The coordination is on a completely different level. Then beyond that, the coordination between the FIA, the media, the teams, and F1. I mean, just the hour before the grid walk, when you see the teams like prepping to come onto the grid, and when they're on the grid, they're prepping for the cars to come onto the grid, then the cars get moved onto the grid, then you have the media. Like, it is like a well-trained, orchestrated circus that is choreographed to a T, and almost to the point where it's like, and now Martin Brundle moves to this spot, and Will Buxton comes to this spot, and the teams move to these spots, and they move to that spot. Impressive that it starts on time. And I know that sounds dumb, but this is thousands of people that have to do a gajillion and a half things, and human error.
No, as an event planner, I was thoroughly impressed. Yeah, that's all I got to say.
When you
thoroughly impressed.
When you see it happening, you are blown away that it is actually possible for so many things to happen simultaneously in conjunction, and it all happened correctly. And I get that they do it 22 times a year and they're very good at it, and they're, paid a lot of money to do it correctly. Shit, 22 times a year is not that many times.
And you're at a different venue every single week.
Every single week. Every single week. Wild. I'm just going to say this. Wild. Okay. Katie, last one. What is one thing, aspect, issue, item, whatever word inserted here that you think could be changed to improve the experience at the Canadian Grand Prix? It was incredible. We loved it. But what is one thing that you were like, this could be better?
Yeah, I know exactly what it is. It is the entrance exit to the paddock. It dumps out by the casino, and it should dump out on the opposite side of the sidewalk so that everybody who's walking on the sidewalk can keep going. And this might be like a little petty of me saying this. Like, I'm sorry if I'm being nitpicky, but you could have easily have made it where everyone who's leaving the paddock gets dumped where they need to get dumped, and everyone else who's walking from grandstands can continue walking straight. And there's not two seas and rivers of people meeting and trying to join and crisscross and all of this. That's my one thing. My one thing of the whole entire thing was just fixing that little thing, because it was really amazing. I was impressed with how many vendors there were. I was impressed with, they had ATMs, they had activities, spaces to sit. The only other thing, which like I think would be impossible, I don't know, would be more spaces for GA to sit. But with the river and all the foliage, thank you. I don't know how they would do that without, cutting trees down or whatever. So that's my only thing. My only two things.
I was impressed they had vegetarian options.
And vegan.
I did see the vegan options too. I was very impressed. I loved it. So many options. It was a great weekend. We loved every minute of it. And now let's actually talk about the race. Okay, things you need to know before this weekend. This one is very exciting. South Africa is reportedly closer to making a return to the F1 calendar for 2023, while Spa and Paul Ricard are at risk at losing their spot. At the same time all of that happened, Australia is planning to remain on the calendar until 2035. So, Aussie, you're sticking with us, and that's
Oi.
That's great for Katie and I because it's on our list. So that buys us, a couple extra years to make it there. The last one, and something that we're going to dive into shortly, is that the FIA took steps this week to combat the effects of porpoising on drivers. So we'll get to that here in a minute.
Okay, Canadian Grand Prix things to know. It was the 51st Canadian Grand Prix, 41st to take place at the circuit Gilles Villeneuve. And the circuit was originally named after the island itself, Circuit Île Notre Dame, and was renamed after Gilles passed away, I believe, in the Belgian GP in the 80s. If I'm remembering correctly, it was like 83. But he actually won the inaugural Canadian GP in 1978 and is from there, so they renamed the track in his honor. The 70-lap race is truly unpredictable, with lots of heavy braking chicanes, low downforce, and quick straights. Notable track features are the S Senna complex at turns 1 and 2, the hairpin turn, which is turn 10, which is one of the best examples of a 180-degree turn design with a full wheel lock in the F1 portfolio of tracks. And then the Casino Straight is known as the quick kink before the last turn. And the last turn, which is number 14, is known as the Wall of Champions because plenty of champions have crashed into that wall throughout the years, but 3 former champs actually hit the wall in the same race in 1999. So it was renamed that. We have not seen a recent champion into the wall. Max Verstappen went into the wall before he was a champion, but it has been renamed that in honor of all of the champions crashing there.
In honor or disgrace?
In disgrace, maybe.
It just
I don't know.
Stresses me out that we honor a wall where everyone goes into it. It's just so weird. Let's chat Friday. FP1. I will fully admit that Katie and I did not actually watch FP1 in its entirety while at the track. Like we said, we didn't have a TV. So I actually caught up on them Friday night and then I rewatched today. But nevertheless, let's chat about them. Both of these sessions were dominated by our champion, Max Verstappen, who went fastest in both FP1 and FP2. In FP1, we had some notably important things happen. First off, like I mentioned earlier, Ocon had an incident with a plastic bag that actually got sucked into his brake duct that caused the brake duct to start smoking because of the lack of the airflow caused it to overheat. Like I said earlier, we did not actually see this happen. We did not actually know that this had happened until Friday after we had left the track. And that's on why you need a TV at the track. Important other things to note. Yuki Tsunoda said he kissed the wall. To me, it looked like a full-on makeout session. He really liked touching that baby. He got all up in it. And lastly, a groundhog, which Katie and I have now come to realize is the mascot of the circuit, almost got taken out by Carlos Sainz. He was the bravest groundhog we saw this weekend. He ran literally between Carlos Sainz and Fernando Alonso. He made it out safe, though. In FP2, this is the one where we had actually moved closer, but unfortunately, we did miss this because it was behind the pit wall setup. Sebastian Vettel had an unsafe release by the pit crew into Kevin Magnussen. Magnussen had to have a break in the fast lane in the pit lane. Therefore, Aston Martin was fined 5,000 euros for that unsafe release. It wasn't Sebastian Vettel's fault. It really kind of wasn't even the pit crew's fault. The pit crew, it seemed from the whole interaction, it seems like the pit crew thought that Vettel was going to get out faster than he actually did. Other things of importance to note, Valtteri Bottas only completed 3 laps. All 3 of those laps ended up with him in the pit lane due to an anti-stall issue, and he did not put up a time for that session. And then finally, a VSC, a virtual safety car, was brought out due to a beer can on the track. Yes, I repeat, it was not our beer can. A Marshall got a huge cheer from the crowd when he ran out to grab that beer can. And it was a great reminder that when you're at the track, throw away your fucking trash, especially your beer cans, to avoid having to halt practice. I laugh, but seriously, throw away your trash. There's trash cans literally fucking everywhere. Okay, that brings us to Saturday. Saturday was wet. It was rainy. It was chilly. A wet, rainy, chilly Saturday, when you know that Sunday is intended to be hot and sunny, is a setup nightmare for teams, which makes practice in the morning important and quali in the afternoon tough. In practice, it wasn't even morning. It was noon. I say morning. It was noon. It was actually 1. It was 1. Fernando Alonso went fastest in FP3. It was a shocker. Crowd went nuts. Pierre Gasly went second. Sebastian Vettel went third. Again, crowd went nuts. People were pumped. They were thinking, wow, today is going to be a shocker of an afternoon. It was slightly. We'll get there. Important things to note for that session. Mick Schumacher cursed on the radio. He said the conditions out here are quite shit. I died. Since when does he cuss? I guess now. I guess only in Canada? In the rain? I don't know. Questions?
Maybe.
Crowdsourcing for an answer. Additionally, all the teams were clearly struggling to get temperature into the tires at the beginning of the session. And a lot of teams, you could tell, were hoping that the track was going to dry. And if not dry, the water was going to at least dissipate a little, which is probably why Max Verstappen did not come out early. He waited until later. I don't think he went out for like the first 30-ish minutes. Everyone was waiting for him to go out. He was avoiding that super, super wet track because it had poured, probably the hardest it had rained right before FP3. Leclerc only went out and did 5 laps, which is not surprising because he wasn't going to be out long for qualies anyway. He was going to put up one time to get out of Q1 and move on. Latifi hit a groundhog. It was not as smart as the groundhog that avoided Carlos Sainz, which is, we've come to realize, is discussing groundhogs on track is more and more part of a normal conversation at that track than I ever thought was possible. And then both Magnussen and Verstappen went off on turn 2 into the grass. There was a super wet patch. Let's chat qualies now. It was a wet one. It was a wild one. It ultimately ended up with Max Verstappen on pole. And me not doing a shoey because of a stupid bet that almost resulted in me drinking out of a very, very wet, muddy shoe. So, joke's on not me for that one. Q1, everyone started out on wet tires. Leclerc went out and put up a time to make sure that he didn't start dead last. He would ultimately start P19 ahead of Yuki Tsunoda. Both of them were taking massive engine penalties. They were new engines for both, full power unit setups for both of them were getting replaced, and they were hitting their allocation for the year. Out in Q1 was going to be Pierre Gasly, which was quite a shock considering he went second fastest 3 hours sooner in the same conditions in FP3. Wild, I tell you. Additionally, out was Vettel, Stroll, Latifi, and Tsunoda. So both Canadians we said goodbye to in Q1 at their home race. We said goodbye to both Astons and both AlphaTauris. It was a bit upsetty spaghetti for Vettel as well, considering he had gone third fastest 3 hours previous. Q2, Leclerc doesn't set a time. We know why already. Perez went into the wall. He red flagged the session, and then he went for an adventure on the island. I had to say it.
Through the forest. Through the forest.
And then kept going through the forest.
I saw this incredible photo of this like random fan standing in the bush or like near a bush right behind him. And it's like, imagine going on a walk. Maybe, I don't know, maybe he was going to take a whiz or I don't know, maybe trying to find a better spot on track. And then having Sergio Perez just show up in front of you in the forest. Great moment for him.
I hope he wasn't peeing.
I don't know. Well,
let's not go there.
Let's not go there.
And moving on. Norris went out in Q2 as well. Something was going on with his car. Engine was misfiring. He would not set a time in Q2 and would ultimately qualify P14. Unimpressive. Ocon would be able to pull himself in that Alpine out of the danger zone. I can't believe I just said that. I didn't want to say danger zone.
Lots of inside jokes.
Lots of inside jokes being dropped out here. Ocon pulled himself out of the bottom 5, which would ultimately drop Valtteri, and he would go out in Q2. So out in that session would be Valtteri, Alex Albon, who would qualify his highest position of the year, Sergio Perez, who hit the wall, Lando Norris without a time, Charles Leclerc without a time as well. This is going to be it was and is a rough place for Lando and Sergio to fight their way back. Like I said, Leclerc would ultimately start further back, P19. Q3, wild time. This was the highlight of Saturday. These 10, 12 minutes made 8 hours in the rain worth it. Everyone started on inters as the track was starting to dry out. You could literally see this dry racing line starting to pop up. It was awesome. Towards the end of the session, Russell tried to go for it and went out on softs, and he spent some time on the lawn. Yellow flagged the session. We all saw it coming. We knew it was happening. It was like one of those moments where you're like, oh, we saw that one. Moving on. More important things. The last lap was incredible, though. The final turn was actually the most wild. The exit out of the turn 13-14 chicane was where it all came down to. Verstappen had a great exit, which would allow him to be on pole position. Sainz had a shit exit, which would land him P3. He would line up next to Lewis Hamilton, P4, which is shocking considering 24 hours previous to that, in FP2, he said on the radio, "This car is undrivable, man." Clearly not, Lewis. Clearly not with the right setup. Alonso had a fabulous lap, the best lap he would have of the weekend and clearly of the last decade, considering it would be his first time lining up on the front row in 10 plus years since Germany of 2011. He would take home P2 in qualifying. Haas has a third row lockout with Magnussen in P5 and Schumacher in P6. Ultimately, an awesome freaking Saturday. Lots of interesting things happening. Wild. So cool to see how many people stuck it out in the rain for FP3 and qualies. Interesting to watch car setups with a wet quali day going into a dry race day, and really fun to see the grid kind of get mixed up. We have Alonso and Haas up front. We have Perez, Norris, Gasly, Vettel, and Leclerc all in the back 10. And clearly a wet quali is an equalizer. And that's fucking fun.
Which brings us to Sunday. And it was a beautiful sunny Sunday after the rainy Saturday quali. Most teams chose to start the race on mediums, while Norris, Perez, Leclerc, Stroll, and Bottas took hard compounds, which landed with a mix of 1 and 2 stop strategies. It was lights out, and away we went, with Max Verstappen and Fernando Alonso leading in the front row. And although Alonso said he was going to fight hard in the first corner, we had Max Verstappen leading the first lap after an excellent start, and Alonso was side by side with Sainz. Hamilton was wheel-to-wheel with Kevin Magnussen, but managed to keep the advantage. Esteban Ocon got around Mick Schumacher. Sergio Perez gained two positions ahead of Alex and Valtteri. George passed Mick in the hairpin. Danny Rick and Zhou had a little bit of a battle. And Leclerc and Tsunoda gained positions, putting Latifi in his rightful place, P20. Back of the pack. DRS became activated and Sainz picked off Alonso for second place in lap 3. Carlos was off to chase Max, who was 2.6 seconds up the road, and the top 4 started to move away from Kevin Magnussen, who had front wing damage after he had this little run-in with Lewis Hamilton, and George was able to get around him and up into 5th place. Kevin eventually got the black and orange flag waved at him and had to come in to get that replaced. Lap 7, we saw Vettel and Gasly down towards the bottom of the grid after they pitted very early. And then we saw Magnussen pit for that new wing, and it absolutely wrecked his afternoon. He fell to 20th, and just the guttural reaction from the crowd and our group of that was painful to listen to, and it was very painful to watch. The very next lap, we had a virtual safety car with a mechanical failure for Sergio Perez. He went on to DNF. Verstappen pitted, and Carlos Sainz took the lead. Lewis got himself around Ocon and up into 5th place, which was stellar to see. I loved watching Lewis race on, I guess, just yesterday. And then Verstappen was able to get Alonso to retake 2nd place. Albon got us all stuck in this DRS train. He was back in P10 with Bottas, Leclerc, and Norris all being held up in that DRS train. All right, then we get to lap 20, and we have some issues for Mick, who just seems to be shit out of luck. It ended in a DNF on the first weekend where points would have been in his favor. Absolutely gutted for him. It was just, it's always hard to see it, and he's on my fantasy team, and I just have such high hopes for him, and I'm just sad about it. That's all. I'm just sad about it.
It's a curse.
So we had it's a curse. So then we had a virtual safety car with everyone falling into the pits. Slow stop for Norris in McLaren, who double stacked and didn't have tires ready for him. He made an interesting comment at the end in the post race that, you got to have tires to drive the car. So he's not wrong. There were lots and lots of slow pit stops this race, and it definitely altered the race in a couple areas. Verstappen was able to get back in the lead. Leclerc was able to get around Bottas in the final chicane with a great move for P7. A little later in the race, Max was nearly 10 seconds ahead of the pack, with both Sainz and Hamilton passing Alonso, who then pitted and returned to P7 behind Leclerc. Charles had a awfully slow pit stop a couple laps later and tumbled back into traffic in P11. Which brings us to lap 44, where Verstappen pitted for hards and came back out in third behind, guess who? Lewis Hamilton. We saw a little Lewis Max moment. It kind of felt like 2021 for a minute. I really had to just do the math there. I forgot we were in 2022. And the two marks ended up pitting a few laps later, which put Max back up in front, and he put the heat on Carlos. He was in second and put the heat up on Carlos, who was in first. And then our prayers for a Carlos Sainz safety flag pit stop were answered. We were all like, give us the safety car, give us the safety car, and we got it. And then we saw Yuki Tsunoda, or because we saw Yuki Tsunoda run off the pit lane exit, and then the safety car came out. So Ferrari made a very safe tire choice with hards, and the race between Carlos and Max really kicked into gear. On lap 53, the track was cleared from all of the debris and all of the ruckus and the safety car, and all the lapped cars were able to unlap themselves before we were back to racing. Sainz stuck with Verstappen, who was ahead of the two Mercs and the two Alpines, and Leclerc, who was able to get around Valtteri. With just 10 laps to go, Sainz was only half a second behind Verstappen. And with only a few laps left, we had Leclerc in fifth, Russell in fourth, Hamilton in third. Sainz was then 9/10 of a second behind Max, and we were waiting. We were waiting for the move. Every time they passed, he got a little closer, a little further away, a little closer, a little further away. We were waiting for the move for him to take his first win. And he just struggled with traction towards the end and fell back a little, which allowed Max Verstappen to take his sixth win of the season and his first win in Canada. Sainz said, I tried everything, guys, taking second, and he did take the bonus point for fastest lap. Hamilton took his second podium of the season in third place, and Russell continued his streak of being Mr. Consistency with a top 5 finish thanks to his P4 finish. Leclerc recovered to P5 overall. Ocon and Alonso took 6th and 7th. Bottas and Zhou in 8th and 9th, and Stroll scored 1 point in his home race, finishing 10th. And then, because it's not a race without maybe a little after drama, we had 2 penalties assigned. Alonso with a 5-second penalty for weaving on the straight dropped him from P7 to P9, which promoted Zhou up to P8, his highest finish. And then Lando Norris received a 5-second penalty for speeding in the pit lane. So all in all, I would give this race a 10 out of 10. It was incredible not only to watch it in person, but to be there for a Lewis Hamilton podium, to be there for a Carlos Sainz Max Verstappen battle. We almost had a Carlos Sainz first win, but maybe we will see that in COTA if we don't see it before, hopefully.
If Carlos Sainz had won, it would have been so unhinged. Like, it's almost a good thing it didn't happen, because I don't think I would have made my flight this morning. We would have been out. I would have been wilding in those Montreal streets.
We would have been partying with him. I don't care. I would have found him and partied with him.
I don't know what I would have done, but I would have been unhinged and uncaged. Like, let's go wild. This is the moment. You think I was living life yesterday? That would have been another level.
I'm secretly, like, very, very deep, dark inside of me, glad that it didn't happen, just so I didn't have to deal with resurrecting Megan from a hangover again.
She's only done that a couple 100 times.
Yeah, but I'm really good at it. It's very impressive to see. Anyway, let's get back to the juicy stuff, because we placed some bets this week, and my God, was it a good week for us. I lost a few. but made my money back and then some with my other bets. So my winning bets were Valtteri for a points finish at plus 120, Charles Leclerc for a top 6 finish at plus 150, winning margin under 5 seconds at plus 185, and then a Lewis Hamilton podium finish. Yes, I did bet on Lewis Hamilton taking a podium at plus 225. So all in all, a great weekend. I did throw some money on Alonso winning because why not? It would have been a fluke and I would have made some good money. And I came close with a double Alpine to in the top 6 finish, but Max kind of ruined that for me with not getting out of the race. So it's fine. We did well. I'm proud of myself. I'm proud of us. It was great. We'll have more money to bet next weekend or the following weekend.
I mean, the Alpine engine not being fully functioning kind of ruined that for you too.
Yeah, it did a little. But there's always next 2 weeks from now. 2 weekends from now.
Okay, fantasy. I still sit in 4th place with 8,259 points, and Katie is still in 7th with 7,850 points. Our fantasy podium of the week was Scooter as our Max Verstappen on top of the podium, the intern Defunk as Carlos Sainz in P2, and Connor from Formula Interested Americans as Lewis Hamilton in P3. Is he going to throw Nolan in a river like Lewis threw Angela in a river?
I'd love to see that. We should have done that.
False.
We should have done that. Someone should have volunteered to go into the river.
Not
Nolan.
I.
Not I.
Not
Oh, no,
I.
No, I ran. Someone else goes in the river.
Not I. My greatest move of the week was, one, to pick up Lewis Hamilton as he was comparatively down in value. So he bumped my value up, which is going to allow me to pick up a much better constructor because I've been hamstringing the last 2 weeks with Haas, which had great quality points, not going to lie. But my second sneak move of the week was Zhou as my talent driver. That was just
Great
kind of
move.
like slightly an accident, but worked in my favor.
And my best move of the week was not only having a full roster because I remembered to fix
You're
my
welcome.
team. Thank you, Megan. But also having Esteban Ocon as my talent driver. He got me like well over 200 points and did wonders for me. Bummer that, again, Mick is on my team. So big bummer that he did not finish the race. This podcast is brought to you by Racing Thread, Formula One clothing for any occasion.
Their clothing features subtle, evocative, embroidered designs for your favorite F1 moments.
From Ricardo's Monza Shoey to Sebastian's Australian scooter ride.
From Lewis's Brazilian comeback to Carlando's round of golf.
Whether you're out to dinner with friends, watching the race at home, or cheering in the grandstands,
Gone are the embarrassing sponsor logos. Instead, Racing Thread is F1 clothing you are comfortable wearing anywhere.
right now, Dirty Driving listeners can get 15% off Racing Thread's entire range of t-shirts, sweatshirts, and polos using the code Dirty Driving.
That's Dirty Driving, all capitals, no spaces, for 15% off their entire clothing range.
Head over to racingthread.com to shop F1 racewear for anywhere.
So this might be the $1 million question, Katie. And if you have an answer, you might be Ferrari's new strategy person. Hey, Bonato, you listening? This might be a resume. Right
Here we
now.
go. I'm
Is this
ready.
an interview?
This is an interview.
What happens first? Ferrari figures out strategy or Mercedes catches up? She's like visibly annoyed that I asked this question. She should have known. I only asked this question 3 times this weekend.
I've been thinking about this. I've been marinating on it. Here's the deal.
She leans in.
I lean in. Ferrari seems to, well, now we know. Okay, now we know why they didn't put him on mediums is because they didn't have mediums to put him on.
Put him on the softs.
Put him on the softs. Why are we making such safe calls? They're safe. They're playing it safe. They are playing it safe. And to be honest, I think Mercedes catches up before Ferrari figures out how to not play it safe. Because I think that's like an inherent thing, is you either play it dirty or you play it safe. And right now they're not playing it dirty. So with the pace that we're at, and it depends with upgrades, like I probably need to do a little bit more research on when more upgrades are coming, but we were shown this weekend, and we technically have been shown by Mr. Consistency, that Mercedes is not actually in that bad of a spot. So I truly think that Mercedes will be able to catch up in whatever regard we're saying catch up in. I don't know if that's to Ferrari. I don't know if that's just catching up in general and having more reliability and more pace. But we had Lewis Hamilton on podium after not being on podium since
Bahrain,
the beginning of the season. So I think we're getting there. We're getting somewhere. And we're getting somewhere faster with Mercedes than we're getting with Ferrari.
I agree. I mean, Ferrari's never had great strategy calls. So I think inevitably you have to err on the side of history and say Mercedes finds the pace. And maybe not even the pace. Well, okay, they find the performance, and Lewis Hamilton extracts the pace. After the race, he literally said, I have it written down, let me pull it up. He literally said after the race, I know where I'm losing to these guys, so that's where I'm really going to focus on attacking to improve. I mean, when Lewis Hamilton's figuring it out, once he figures it out, it's
game over.
It's game over Ferrari. Like, Ferrari checkmate. Then they have to take the fight to Red Bull. And then that purely comes down to development dollars for this year. I don't know what happens next year. It also, I'm going to asterisk this also is all dependent on the technical directive, which we haven't dived into, and I said we were going to dive into. Thursday morning-ish, when, the team principals were arriving in Canada, they were found out that a technical directive was handed down by the FIA that basically said two things. Let me pull it up so I can get it correct, because I don't want to misrepresent the words of the FIA. I know that sounds so weird for me.
That would be so horrible to do.
I know. However, dare I misrepresent the words of the inconsistent body that runs this world? I mean, Formula One. They said two things. One, the FIA is going to implement closer scrutiny of the plastic skid plates. Basically, they're going to look at the bottom of the floors, like the underside, and if they have aggressive damage, then they can force the teams to change their setups. Interesting. Two, the FIA is going to define a metric based on the car's vertical acceleration to give a limit. They haven't decided on that metric yet at all. So what happens this weekend? Mercedes plans to run a different spec floor. They run it on Friday. There's rumblings of teams wanting to protest. So they decide that they aren't going to run that floor because technically the technical directive violated the technical regulation. That it violated the FIA's own rules. The FIA's rules violated the FIA's rules. What? So here's what happens now. Mercedes doesn't run the floor, so they don't get protested this weekend. This weekend, taken care of. Saturday, there was a meeting of the team principals, like they always have. Apparently, it's pretty contentious. Rumor has it on Twitter that Binotto and Wolff were seen aggressively talking to one another. So we had Wolff like this and Binotto like this with his glasses. And next thing that's going to happen is there's going to be a meeting this week about it. And then the next thing the FIA can do is bring the rules in front of like the World Motorsport Council, and the rules can be finalized before Silverstone. So if they change the rules in the middle of the year, does that help Mercedes? Does that hurt Mercedes? Does that help Red Bull? Does it hurt Red Bull? That could be a wrench in the cog, that could be a wrench in the cog for either team. So
we shall see.
Does that help or hurt Ferrari? Carlos Sainz was bumping his way down the track in FP1.
My only note that I wrote down in my notebook, like the only note from the whole entire weekend, was some porpoising with bumpy track, Carlos Sainz.
There you go. So it's clear they have to do something. What is that something, and how does that impact Red Bull, Ferrari, Mercedes? And the next question is, how does that impact the best of the rest? Right now, it looks like it's going to be Alpine.
All right, Megan. I've got a multi-question for you. Are you ready?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. What does Canada have to say for the rest of the season? Will it be an easy Red Bull Max Verstappen championship win from here on out? Is McLaren ever going to find the pace? And what is going to happen to our sophomores, Yuki and Mick?
Copy and paste everything I just said, insert it here about Ferrari and Red Bull and Mercedes. The only thing I'm going to add here is that currently in the DNF ratio between Red Bull and Ferrari, Red Bull is up a DNF in terms of mechanical retirements. Red Bull now has 4 mechanical retirements for the year to Ferrari's 3. That isn't pretty, and that is not going to be cute if we get to a point in the season where it matters the number of races you finished in points. I'd like to remind everyone that we are only on round 9. We're only on round 9.
Not even halfway through.
More to go. So points at some point could become an issue, especially if you've missed 4 races. Down the row on your questions. McLaren, it's a pretty shitty situation that they've got going on there. It's interesting how quickly the narrative has shifted from Ricciardo needs to step up to there is a massive issue with McLaren in general, and it's now Lando and Daniel upset about McLaren. That narrative has just swung in a week and a half.
Yeah.
And in that week and a half, we've had Ricciardo outperforming Lando.
Fuck yeah.
I am not going to comment beyond that at this point. I would like to see how Silverstone goes.
Okay, I will take that.
In terms of the younger drivers and the rookie, Zhou impressed me this weekend. We'll see what happens in the next couple of races. I'm not really ready to comment, but so far I'm impressed with this performance, but we've had some issues in the last 7 races. Not all his fault, but still. Yuki, what the hell, dude? Really? 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 I'm going to say it again. Really? The kid is so confusing. One weekend, he's impressing me. The next weekend, I'm just like, it's very clear that he is still a rookie at heart and still is making rookie mistakes. And Mick, he's cursed. Seriously, someone needs to figure out what we need to do to break the curse. I'll take one for the team. I'll do whatever needs to be done to break the curse. Did I miss anything?
No, you covered it. I will accept all of those answers and will definitely press you on the McLaren one after Silverstone.
But seriously, when are we going to figure out how Mick is cursed and how we can undo it?
Yeah, we got to solve that. We got a Ouija board or something like that.
No Ouija board. How about some candles?
All right, I'll allow it.
Ouija boards, we don't mess with the spirits that way.
You're right. You're right. Poor suggestion out of me. We'll forget I said that.
Yeah, what happens if we Ouija board the wrong way and we make McLaren worse?
Well, We would only Ouija board for Mick.
Well, what happens if we accidentally Ouija board wrong?
Okay. I've never Ouija boarded in my life, so I don't plan on starting.
And then we make Lewis Hamilton's car crap.
Yeah, no Ouija boards for us. The winners and losers were awfully challenging to pick this week. Specifically, the losers, because there were many. There were many losers.
Many could have filled these roles.
I think we start with our losers and get them out of the way, and then move into our winners.
I think that's a good choice.
Yeah.
Which one will make us less sad? You or mine? You or mine? Yours or mine?
I think mine. You go first.
Fernando Alonso. El Plan was more like El Pain. This weekend, wow, it was a roller coaster of emotions. Going from the best grid position in a decade, front row next to Max, talking all the shit talking, from going maximum attack and getting him in turn one after Max called him old. All I can say is how the turntables. It was some bad luck, an extremely untimely VSC, which started as he was at the start-finish line and ended with him at the pit lane entrance that ultimately ended up with him staying out. He was overtaken by Sainz. He was overtaken by Hamilton. He had an engine issue at lap 20 that cost him time on the straights. And the cherry on top was the 5-second time penalty for weaving on the straights in defense of Bottas, which dropped him from P7 to P9, even though others have done that. It was just unfortunate for the man. Unfortunate is really the only word I can say. And really, what was extra awful to watch was his after-race interview where he was just distraught. It was could have been so great, and it just crumbled. And as most of you can probably guess, my dishonorable mention is Yuki Tsunoda for crashing coming out of the pits. And when I tell you, the crowd lost it. We all saw him crash, and then the replay made it clear that he crashed coming out of the pits, and the people lost it.
Foul. It was foul. Absolutely foul.
Just like Fernando Alonso's performance.
And not as foul as my loser, which was Haas. It was up and down for a moment. After qualies, I was like, are they going to be my winner this week? Like, are we going to get Mick in the points? Are we going to get Megan closer to fulfilling her prediction that all drivers are going to get points minus Nicholas Latifi because we're giving you a bye on that one? No, none of the above. We had them, again, in the third row, best ever joint qualifying for the team, and sort of a shock performance since Haas has been slipping down the grid with other teams introducing upgrades, and they are holding out. And then it all tumbled down with Schumacher DNFing because of issues, and then the poor broken wing for Kevin Magnussen, which put him in last and never really recovered. So poor showing come Sunday for Haas. My dishonorable mention, we haven't really spoken about them other than the question that I asked, but it's McLaren. They finished 11th and 15th. Daniel was in 11th. Lando was in 15th. And I really just did not get anything out of them yesterday at all. So
I think, Katie, we should just respond to any questions about McLaren's performance with Lando's response. When asked what the problem was and what they were lacking, he said, speed, grip, performance. And when the reporter responded, so everything, he said, yep, so everything. They had nothing this weekend.
Absolutely nothing. It was horrible.
But you know who just really made my heart happy this weekend? And this is wild for me. This is a crazy one. This is a different Alfa Romeo driver that I've been obsessed with lately. Zhou is my winner of the Canadian Grand Prix. I almost went Alfa Romeo for my winner, considering this is their second double points finish of the year, and Valtteri was P7. But I said, no, giving it to the rookie, giving it to the rookie. He went 7 races without the points. This was his first Q3 appearance. He outqualified his teammate. Wow. He outqualified his teammate, Mr. Q3 Valtteri, boat ass. His second time in the points. This was his highest F1 finish in P8. His second points finish, second to his P10 in Bahrain. That's so many numbers in a row, and that was very difficult for my very tired brain. He showed great race pace. He got Daniel Ricciardo early on. He stayed on Stroll's ass. He picked off Vettel at the end to get into P9. He was ultimately promoted, but it was just great. And he was on fire, and people were loving him in the crowds. They were shouting, they were screaming, they were excited for him. It was awesome. Like, his performance, like, he had a standout performance this weekend, and it was great to see, especially considering his, like, quote unquote target for the year is getting to Q2. So to see him go beyond that and then to be able to have the race performance to back up that qualifying position is awesome. It does help that Alfa Romeo has a good car this year.
Great winner. Thoroughly impressed by him this weekend. My winner is Mr. Charles Leclerc. He started 19th, back of the pack, and finished 5th. And I think he truly would have gone on to podium had it not been for that slow pit stop. And despite that pit stop and the DRS train and his car literally being held together by tape, I think we could have seen a lot more. And he even said that post-race. He said that he was disappointed in his performance, and he thought that he could have gotten a lot more as well. So with his DNF in Baku last week, this was a total win, and I wanted it, he wanted it, and we got it. We got a win for Charles, even if he didn't think so.
Full stop. I 100% believe if Charles was in Carlos' position, Charles would have gotten Max and won the race.
Agree. I agree with that as well.
I am so excited to do our honorable mention this week. This brings me so much joy. Almost as much joy as seeing his happy as fuck face on the podium on Sunday. This week's honorable mention is Lewis Hamilton. From his car being undrivable on Friday to qualifying 4th to P3 and a podium on Sunday, it was a range of emotions for our champion. The joy on this man's face on the podium, his second of the year, was incredible. He beat his teammate for the first time since the season opener in Bahrain, which was his last podium. Even seeing that and realizing and putting those facts together, even though I know them to be true, is heartbreaking to me. He showed, even though George has been showing it, that Mercedes has some much improved pace. Post-race, like I said before, he commented that he knows where he's losing and he's going to work on it. So I don't think it will be long before he is really in this fight. And the little, like, cookie crumbles on top of the milkshake was Angie going into the river because she made a bet with Lewis that said if he got on the podium, she'd go in the rivers, but Lewis had to push her in. So it was awesome. He was on another level, vibing, happy to be there, so excited to be with the fans, so excited to just be in the moment. And if anything, I think this is the confidence boost he needs going into his home race, Silverstone.
We had a very easy choice when it came to our hidden gem for this week, and it was simply all of the incredible people we met at the track, from the French couple, from the man from New Zealand, to the group from Canada that hung out with us and drank beers while we waited to get in on Sunday, to finally getting to meet Connor and Nolan in person, to trying poutine with the intern. And I think the big cherry on top was really spending Father's Day and race Sunday with Roger, our dad, and just seeing how excited he got because we were so excited was truly touching. And every single other person that we spoke to or interacted with or saw or bumped into or anything, it was just an incredible weekend with incredible people. And we're so appreciative of all of our new listeners and all of the people who are giving it a try after we've talked to them about it. So thank you. Thank you for getting through one of our longest episodes. And thank you for being a support system to us as well.
Up next is another bye week and a much, much needed break for us all after a back-to-back before our next back-to-back, which will see us travel to Silverstone and the Red Bull Ring. Tune in next week for our next team deep dive, all about Mercedes and our British duo Lewis Hamilton and George Russell as they prepare for their home race, Silverstone. Thank you so much for listening to another episode. Don't forget to subscribe and follow us at Dirty Driving Pod on Twitter and Instagram.
Until next time, stay dirty.